Hi, I'm Alex, and here's a new story on my channel. Enjoy watching.
My name is Abraham. I am 90 minus 3 years old. I have lived in Chicago for 60 years. I have 5 children, 11 grandchildren, and now, great minus grandchildren I can barely count. I never told them this story. Never told anyone. 70 minus 3 years of silence. But today I will tell it. An old man in an armchair by a window, with a photograph in his hands. 70 minus 3 years. He carried it in his pocket. Winter, 1941. Eastern Poland. 1941. Eastern Europe. On this map, hundreds of small towns, each with a name, with streets, with families. One of those towns was ours. Small, quiet, alive. My grandfather was a tailor. His grandfather was a tailor before him. We had a workshop, 2 rooms. It smelled of cloth and tobacco. There were 6 of us children. I was the youngest, the one they called the clever one, which usually just meant talks too much. My mother baked bread every Friday. The smell reached the whole street. Our neighbor, not Jewish, used to say, "There goes Sarah's bread again." She loved that bread. In a small town, everyone knows your bread, and your children, and your quarrels, and your laughter. In the mornings, the shops opened. The markets, old vegetables, fish, fabric. Old men argued about politics at their doorways. Nobody believed this could end. Our family had lived in that town for 200 years. I remember my father's hand holding mine on the way to synagogue. How large and warm it was. And the first snow of that year, how clean and white it was, before everything changed. My father didn't leave when he still could. Civilized people, he said about the Germans. "This will pass," he said. It did not pass. It was an ordinary evening, as ordinary as evenings could be back then. Abraham remembered that day his whole life. He stood at the window and watched the snow. And outside, in the white silence, German vehicles were passing. He didn't understand yet what it meant. Children don't understand these things right away. The last peaceful night. They came in the spring. When they came into our town, there was silence. Not the silence of a sleeping morning, a different silence. The kind where even the dogs go quiet. I remember the sound of their boots on the cobblestones. That sound visited me in dreams for 30 years after the war. Life became quiet, not the quiet of an early morning. A different quiet, the kind where people are afraid to breathe too loud. Children stopped playing outside. Shops closed one by one. At night, you could hear the boots on the cobblestones. A steady, heavy sound. It visited people in dreams for years. Something began that had no good name. People called it different things, but it meant one thing. Your home was no longer yours. They hung their flags on our buildings and looked at us as though we were guests in our own town. We watched from our windows because going out was frightening. They posted decrees around the town. We didn't always understand the German, but we understood the tone. My mother began hiding food, a little flour under the floorboards, a few coins sewn into the lining of the coat. She did it at night, after the children were asleep. Just in case, she told us, if someone woke up and asked. I didn't understand then in case of what. One night, I woke up and saw her through the crack in the door. She didn't know I was watching. I understood later when the just in case finally arrived. The market was empty. The very same market where people argued about fish prices just a year ago. Papers were checked every day, every corner. In the evenings, we sat in the dark, no lights on, listening to footsteps on the street, counting them. Are they coming closer or moving away? At night, the German patrol, boots on wet cobblestones, that same sound. One evening I heard my father saying to my mother quietly, so we children wouldn't hear, Sarah, we need to leave. And she said, where? Moshe, where does a Jewish family go? He had no answer. They closed the synagogue, a padlock on the door, and nothing more. People stood in queues, with bundles, with children, with papers. Those who stood in those queues usually didn't come back. One morning I saw a pair of children's shoes on the neighbor's doorstep, neatly placed. The owners were already gone. I lay awake at night and couldn't sleep. At 8 years old, I already knew something very bad was close. My father stood at the window every night for a long time. I could see his back and I knew he was afraid. When a father is afraid, things are very bad indeed. One afternoon, I watched them take the IBS away with their bundles under escort. We watched from the window. We did nothing. What could we do? There were fewer and fewer people on our street. Chairs stood empty at tables. My mother held us tighter than before, as though she was afraid that if she let go, we'd disappear. Food was running out. We ate potato and bread, and we were grateful to have even that. My father sewed our names into the linings of our coats, so they can find you, he said. I didn't ask who would find us. The searches began in October. Soldiers went house to house. Sometimes they took things. Sometimes they took people. Those who were taken did not come back. Every evening my father said, we will leave soon. But we didn't leave. We ran out of time. A search, that's when they knock. On the door at night, 3 knocks. Official. And you already know. They entered with flashlights. The light hit you in the face. That was intentional. They searched everything, not with anger, businesslike, like a job. That was the most frightening thing of all. My mother held little Joseph in her arms. When he started to cry, she pressed him tighter. We stood against the wall. We didn't move. We barely breathed. Sometimes they found what had been hidden. Mother's flour, father's money. They took it and left. My father always stood straight when they came. He never lowered his eyes. That was his only weapon. The winter of 1941 was dark. You couldn't even see the stars. 3 in the morning, that was a special time. That was when they came most often. One night, they came to the neighbors across the street. We saw shadows in their windows. Then the windows went dark. In the morning, a woman's scarf lay on the cobblestones. Pink. I knew it was Malka's scarf from the second house. Malka was gone. I looked at my own hands in the darkness. Small, child's hands. And I thought, what can I do with these? When they left, my parents held each other. Silently, no words. That was the first breath in several hours. Winter of 1941. A candle burned in our window. A small point of warmth in a very cold world. And then came that night, the one I never told anyone about. 70 minus 3 years. It was a Tuesday. I remember because on Tuesdays my mother made potato soup. We ate the soup. I went to bed. It was an ordinary evening. As ordinary as evenings could be back then. The knock came at 3 in the morning. 3 knocks. Quiet ones. That is almost worse than shouting. We ate potato soup. Ordinary soup. Warm. It matters to remember it was warm. I fell asleep quickly. Children can sleep even when they're very frightened. 3 in the morning. The door was the only thing standing between us and them. 3 knocks. Quiet ones. Under the door, a strip of 4 light. My mother woke first. She took Joseph quickly, as though she had always known this moment would come. Joseph began to cry. My mother pressed him against her chest. She was certain this was the end. A crying baby was a death sentence. She was whispering, "Shah. Shah. Quiet. Joseph. Shah." But he kept crying. We all woke up, sat up in our beds, did not move. My father stood up. He walked to the door. I saw his hand stop on the handle for 1 second. The door opened. Light hit us in the face. An officer stood in the doorway, young, a sharp silhouette against the night. They came in. We pressed against the wall. The whole family in one line. Boots on the wooden floor. Slow steps toward us. The officer scanned the room. Young, 20-5. Maybe. Hard face. Empty eyes, the kind that come from having seen too much. He looked at my father. My father did not look away. Joseph was still crying, tiny, understanding nothing. I looked at my mother. I had never seen that expression on her face before. It was the face of someone saying goodbye. The officer turned and walked toward the crib in the corner. A small wooden crib. In it was everything we had left to protect. Everyone froze. He stood over it, his back to us. We couldn't see his face. He looked down, and something in him changed. His eyes. He cried. Not loudly, not dramatically. Tears simply, quietly ran down his face. He unbuttoned his breast pocket and took out a photograph. In the photograph was a baby, tiny, wrapped in a white blanket, almost the same age as the one in the crib before him. His son, whom he had never held in his arms, who was born while he was here on a foreign war, in a stranger's home. He cried, not loudly, not for show. Tears simply ran down his face. I have had many moments in my life when I thought this is the end. But this moment, I could not understand. The enemy is crying. Why is the enemy crying? The photograph was crumpled, the corners soft from months in a pocket. He had carried it every single day, so he wouldn't forget who he was. He sat and looked at it, at his son. His son, in a white blanket. His soldiers stood at the door. They didn't understand what was happening. This was not in their instructions. My mother was watching him. The terror in her face was slowly becoming something she had no name for. My father didn't move. He waited, not knowing for what. And I watched from behind my mother's arm. An 8-year-old boy. And history. Then he stood up, reached into his pack. He took out a chocolate bar. He broke it into pieces, carefully, deliberately, and held a piece out to the first child. A small hand reached toward him. He gave a piece to me. I took it, carefully the way you hold something very fragile. I had never tasted chocolate before. You know how sometimes a taste is not just a taste, but a feeling. That is what it was. Then he put the photograph back in his pocket, carefully, gently. He looked at my mother once, not cruel, not kind, human. He nodded, slightly. That nod I have remembered my entire life. He stood up, gathered his men, and left without taking anything. without saying a word. The door closed. The darkness came back, and only then did my mother sink to the floor and cry. I had never tasted chocolate before. You know how sometimes a taste is not just a taste, but a feeling. That is what this was. Chocolate from a man who came to kill us and did not kill us, because in his pocket was a photograph. When they left, we didn't move for a long time. Then my father lit a candle. My mother sank to the floor. She cried quietly. She had held herself together through all of it. Now she didn't have to. My father lowered himself beside her. He put his arms around them, both her and Joseph. We had survived the night. We children huddled together. I held my sister. She held our brother. And then I saw something on the floor. A small rectangle on the wooden boards. He had dropped it. He hadn't noticed. I picked it up, carefully, like something alive. I turned it over. The baby looked up at me from the photograph. He was the same age as Joseph, a soldier's son. I looked at him for a long time. My father reached over, put it down. Abraham, I didn't put it down. I hid it inside my shirt. This is mine. In the morning, dawn came. We were alive. We sat at the table. We drank tea. We didn't speak. It was the most important morning of my life. I touched it through my shirt several times to make sure it was still there. A few weeks later we left. We took what we could carry. I took the photograph. The station was full of families, all with bundles, all with the same expression. I looked out the train window at our town, the synagogue, the market, our house. Then it went around a bend and disappeared. I never went back. The war ended in 1945. Our family survived. Not all, but some. We arrived in America in 1947. The Statue of Liberty. I watched it and cried. I carried two things with me: my father's coat and that photograph. The coat I lost. The photograph never. I carried it in my wallet every single day. 70 minus 3 years. Here it is. 70 minus 3 years in a wallet. It survived 3 countries. 60 years in America. 5 children. 11 grandchildren. We settled in Chicago. We opened a small store. In 1955, I got married. In the wedding photo, I'm in my suit. In my pocket, the photograph. In 1958, my first son was born. I held him in my arms. His face was almost like the face in the photograph. And I understood then that soldier. He wanted this too. We lived. We worked. Children grew. An ordinary life. What could be better than an ordinary life? 5 children. None of them knew this story. Rachel died in 2012. We were together for 50-7 years. A few years ago, my grandson asked about the war. I took out the photograph. The first time in 70 years I showed it to anyone. Whose son was this? What happened to him? He would be in his 80s now if he survived. The German soldier's son, Abraham's first grandchild, both born in the same year, neither knowing their lives had already crossed. The war ended in 1945. Millions did not come home. That officer, I will never know if he made it back. Somewhere in post-war Germany, a small boy stood on a train platform, holding a photograph in both hands, searching the faces of returning soldiers. Perhaps that was his son. This photograph survived a war. Survived 70-3 years. It will outlive me too. I held it in my hands at age 8, then at 20, then at 40. Then I stopped counting. It was simply always with me. My grandson asked me once, "Grandpa, do you hate the Germans?" I was quiet for a long time. Then I said, "That's older, no, never," because I saw his face. I saw the photograph. I saw that he was also a human being with a son he had never held in his arm. War turns people into monsters, but not all of them, and not forever. That's Olger. In that night, he remembered who he was. For 30 seconds. 30 seconds was enough for us to live. I have lived 90-3 years. I have seen much hatred, many wars. War killed millions, but it could not destroy one thing: a human being's ability in the darkest moment to remember who they love. That soldier remembered his son, and that memory gave him back his soul. I am alive because he had a photograph in his pocket. 11 great-grandchildren. None of them know. They almost never existed. Every sunset is a gift. I know that for certain. That photograph lay in my wallet, beside pictures of my children. Beside a picture of Rachel. It was part of the family. I don't know what became of that soldier. I hope he made it home, that he held his son in his arms. I hope he had a long life, that at the end he also had grandchildren, because he is also a human being who remembered who he loved at 3 in the morning in 1942. Abraham Greenfeld died in 2019. He was 90-3 years old. At his funeral, his grandson told this story about the soldier, about the chocolate, about the photograph. War killed millions, but it could not destroy one thing: the ability of a human being in the darkest moment to remember who they love. And I will tell you this: before you hate someone, imagine what's in their pocket. It might be a photograph of their child. Until Abraham grew very old, he never told this story. But he always carried that photograph. Every single day. That town still stands today. The same cobblestones. But the Jewish community is gone. This story will outlive all of us if we tell it. Abraham left in 2019 with a light heart, having said what he needed to say. I have lived 90 minus 3 years, and I will tell you one thing. Don't forget your photographs. The people you love, keep them close. That is the only thing that can save you and someone else at 3 in the morning. If this story moved you, please like this video. Not for the algorithm, so that stories like this one keep living. Subscribe. Every week I share the stories of people who live life to its fullest. People we are in danger of forgetting. See you next week.